action for the Ginetta G40 Cup. Up next, their second race of the weekend, their second of three. It's a triple header for both of the Ginetta Championships in action here today, with the G40 car forming the basis for both of them. But this is the G40 Cup, a step below the GT5 Challenge that we've already seen out racing earlier on today, for some slightly less experienced drivers, but the racing tends to be equally as exciting. The race yesterday was won by Alistair Barkley from Daniel Morris in second place and Rob Keogh in third, and actually in not particular Ginetta style, they were fairly well spaced out by the end of it. But we have cars moving, the race is underway, and 15 minutes of action gets begun here at Oulton Park, with Alistair Barkley leading them through Old Hall Corner for the first time of asking. Chris Salkeld from second on the grid seems to have slotted in behind him as well, one or two on the grass further back. They are all, I think, safely through. Dropping down the hill now though towards Cascades. The white car is Barkley, the blue car is Salkeld behind him. They shared the front row, but Salkeld finished down in 9th place yesterday, so he will be determined to try and make up for that in this 15-minute encounter. Nose to tail for the race lead then as they head down the back straight towards Island Bend. David Pittard alongside me for this one. It was a clean start. It looks, in the early stages at least though, like these are our two Ford men. They've already pulled a significant gap over the rest.
Yeah, the race on Saturday, they were streaks ahead of everyone else really, same with qualifying as well. Rob Keogh did well from the Watch Race team, did well to hold on the back of them, but he's had an absolute shock of a start like this thing. He is nowhere like this. So, yeah, they're going to check out, I think, and there should be hopefully a good race between the two.
Yeah, Rob Keogh started 4th, is now 12th, so you're right on that one. He's gone backwards rather at the start, but often we do see this in the early laps. If there's a bit of a stack up through Old Hall Corner and Cascades, you can sometimes see the leaders pull away, only to be reeled in a bit later on. Nice move being made up the inside there by car number 11 going into the Hislop chicane, which is a viable overtaking opportunity. And that was a nice move being made up the inside line, under braking, avoiding contact as well, which is handy. Number 60 is Charles Corner, having started 13th. The leaders pulled through, and he's had Alphonse. I thought it was Salkeld in second. It is not. It's actually the 31 car of Daniel Morris. The reason I thought it was Salkeld is because he went around the outside of Old Hall Corner, and I wrongly assumed it was the man that had started on the outside of row 1 that was challenging for the lead. It wasn't. Salkeld's gone backwards, and so Daniel Morris inherited second and very nearly got the race lead away as well. Move up the inside of Lodge Corner, that's Roy Alderslade going through, and Alderslade conversely has had a really good start. He was 7th on the grid, and that move was to take 3rd place away from Martin Wills. So a particularly jumbled first lap of racing for the G40 Cup, but it is led at the end of lap 1 by Alistair Barkley, with Morris in 2nd position. Then this big gap back to this big battle for 3rd position, Alderslade, Wills, and in 5th position number 8 machine of Ian Duggan, who started 8th. So they're doing their best to confuse us, David, because they're in nothing like the order in which they started, but lots of action in the early stages, and that was a mighty save by Martin Wills.
It's a bit of a bump going into Cascades there, and I'm pretty sure you're going from 4th to 3rd down there in the Ginetta. H-pattern gearbox in these cars, so heel toe is needed to match the revs to the rear wheel speed as you go into there. Looks like it's just not matched there. Had a wobble, thought he was going to rear end the car ahead there, but did well to hang on to it, all arms and elbows. But he's only dropped 1 position, so hopefully he can now regroup and then carry on with his pace he's had the first part of this race, to maybe catch up back to the podium again.
And in that moment, you've got a split-second decision to make, haven't you? Do I A, keep fighting the car and risk running into the car in front of me, or do I B, bail out and just make sure that I don't make contact with anybody? And that's a question I'm sure that Brian Ratcliffe's probably asking himself right now after the issues at the start of the previous GT race. The battle is still very much on though. It looks as though Martin Wills has regrouped now, and he's right back on the tail of the number 8 car of Ian Duggan in front of him. This fight then for 4th position, Duggan having gone through earlier on in the lap. Through Nickenbrook Corner they go, up Clay Hill once more, and in behind them appears to be Chris Salkeld, who's trying to fight his way back after that sluggish start. Leading 2 though, could have 4 seconds between 2nd and 3rd place already. We did see a 2.3 second winning margin yesterday, Alistair Barkley over Daniel Morris, so they were on top 2 in yesterday's race, and they did sort of spread themselves out slightly as the race went on. We'll see whether or not Daniel's been able to make some setup tweaks maybe, and has got his head around the car and the circuit a little bit better. Might well be able to stick with Barkley a little more closely. 3 cars for 3rd place out of Lodge, up and over Dearsley, sorry, 4th place, excuse me, up and over Dearsley. And And that is the battle to watch at the moment. The top three are pulling away. Alderslade, having got into that third place, has gapped the rest of them. It's going to be side by side again for fourth into Old Hall Corner, is it? No, there's still no way through for Martin Wills. And frustratingly here, David, you can see that he's getting backed up into the group of cars behind. It's sort of now or never, isn't it? He has to go for it.
Yes, he's showing Oulton's characteristics here. He's inside over the King, but outside for Cascades. Can he get the cut back and the run on the way out? A bit of a slipstream from these cars as well. He's going to show his nose into Ireland. Not a big braking zone into Ireland, so he's going to be brave. He's going to make a move here. Not quite, just showing his nose. Very tricky through this centre section of the lap to make a big move, as it's just kind of a single line through there. The moves become at the beginning and the end of the lap. Oh, make a move there though.
Oh, hang on, there's a problem, isn't there? There's a problem there, unfortunately, for Martin Wills. That was, I thought I was about to agree with you that Chris Salkeld had just made a phenomenal pass around the outside at Shell, but actually I think that job made a little easier for him, because Martin Wills' car, when he put the right foot down, it didn't seem to go anywhere, and so unfortunately for Martin, who had been looking fairly racy in the early stages, his race now appears to have come to an end. So that now promotes Chris Salkeld up into 5th position. He's now going for 4th, trying to find a way past Ian Duggan if he can. And then the queue of cars behind getting larger and larger by the lap radar. But Salkeld, we would expect to make this move fairly rapidly. Once he does, it'll be fascinating to watch the lap times to see whether or not he can close in on the top 3. He should have the pace, but something went wrong in Saturday's race and he only finished 9th, so he's still a bit of an unknown quantity here. Side by side towards Druids. It's a brave place to try and execute an overtake, but Salkeld's had the brave pills this morning and he's gone through. And now, David, he has that beautiful sight of clear track in front of him. Now we'll really see what sort of pace he's got.
He's got a nice little carrot there dangling in front of him. A big gap to make, but as you said, qualifying, started P2, he should have the pace to close that gap. He's only got 8 minutes to do so we'll be interested to watch the timings there.
Yeah, we'll see the sector time start to come through as well on the next lap now that he is into that clean air. Some nice battling going on behind him, you know, and that's the number 35 car going on the inside. That's Rob Keogh, who was 3rd on Saturday. Behind him, the car that I think he's just found a way past is Julian Watling, who's running in the Cup class elements of the race. The leading Cup car at the moment is Alderslade. No difference in cars, it's just based on experience levels of the drivers. And Alderslade, the Cup leader, doing the rest of Watling, fighting behind and into the barriers, has gone the number 50 machine, and that is Robin Grimwood, another Cup class competitor, whose race has ended in the barriers, possibly on the run through the Lodge and Deers Leap, I think. Ireland then comes to this squabble, and it's the orange 35 car of Rob Keogh that's starting to make all of the moves. He's just picked another one off now, and in fact the 42 car of Mike West losing 2 positions in one, so Mike had been 6th at the start of the lap. He's now down to 8th position. There's the stricken car of Martin Wills. There are quite a few Ginetta G40s now sort of scattered across the beautiful parkland scenery of Oulton Park, so I do wonder whether we might need a safety car intervention. No sign of any safety car activity just yet. If we were to get a pace car, that would really benefit Chris Salkeld, who we see there in the number 11 car, is into 4th position. I said I'd look at his sector time, so I'll deliver on that promise. Yes, 8/10ths faster than the 3rd place car Alderslade in the first sector alone. The car he's just overtaken, by the way, that is the number 88 of John Wall, who's been in the pit lane for bodywork damage sustained early on in the race. The bonnet starting to come loose on that car rather. We might get a shot of that in a moment. The car is starting to slip down, and there it is with that loose front bodywork. I fear, David, you might need to come back in and get that seen to again, because that's not ideal. The last thing you want is for that to fly off at high speed.
Yeah, it pivots from the front, and the sort of low pressure area in front of the screen draws it up, so you find yourself loosening your belts to actually peer over the rising screen, and then obviously when you get on the brakes it's even worse, because then it pivots forward again. So yeah, common issue with these Ginetta G40 cars.
Not a problem for Ian Duggan there. He all of a sudden seemed to slow coming out of Lodge Corner and handed 3 places away. So Ian Duggan, the blue and white car there on the inside line, the number 8 car, just did not seem to go. Could have been a missed gear, I suppose. That's easy to do at that part of the circuit, I guess.
Yep, 2nd to 3rd gear change there, so you're coming across the gate. And again, these H-back gearboxes add another element, as opposed to the flappy paddle gearboxes you get these days. This is why these Ginettas are so good as entry-level cars. They teach you to drive properly before you then get the luxuries of modern race cars.
Yeah, they have it easy these days, don't they, the pros? But it's important when you're sort of choosing which career path you're going to go for in motor racing that you learn the basics first, and that's why things like Formula 4 100 racing are so popular for the single-seater drivers, and these Ginetta G40s are so popular amongst aspiring tin top and sports car aces, because you do unlearn basics of car control. They don't have that much downforce or that much grip from the grooved tyres on which they run. So you have to learn how to handle the car, you learn how to race closely, because the lack of aerodynamics means that it can follow nose to tail with little to no serious aerodynamic effect, at least negative aerodynamic effect. You get a slipstream though, that certainly helps to keep the racing nice and close. So Ian Duggan certainly seems to have pace now. I would tend to agree that was just a missed gear situation coming out of Lodge Corner. He'll be careful not to do that again though, because it cost him 3 places, and this is the issue, isn't it? When you're in a pack of cars this tightly bunched, David, one mistake, you won't lose 1 place, you won't lose 2, you'll probably lose 3 or 4.
Yes, he is punished very hard. Good for the want-to-race car, Jimmy Thompson. He's made, after again a bit of a poor start, he's back up into the top 6 again now, following his teammate Rob Keogh, who's also made salvaged his start as well. And they look to be charging, looking at the sector times at the moment.
Race leader across the line then, onto the 6th lap of the race. Just under 5 minutes still to go. They got 8 laps in on Saturday. So we would expect something similar. I think they may have had an early safety car in that race though, potentially. The lead gap came down actually on the previous lap, because Morris with 2 minutes 1.3 was actually 8/10 of a second quicker than the leader. Whether Alistair Barkley had a moment somewhere, I know not. The fastest lap, incidentally, has been set by the race leader, Alistair Barkley. Chris Salkeld, rather confusingly, is being shown as having set the fastest lap, even though it's, 58.9, I beg your pardon, yes. So Chris Salkeld now has the fastest lap and is 3.1 seconds behind Roy Alderslade in 3rd. That gap not coming down perhaps quite as rapidly as I thought, although a fastest lap is the right way to go about it for Salkeld. He will be ruining that poor first lap though, because having started from the front row of the grid, he would most definitely have been expecting to be challenging for a race victory here. And Salkeld actually started 2nd on Saturday as well and only ended up 9th position, so missed opportunities there really, aren't they?
Yeah, he's clearly on top of the car in terms of pace, but depends on how much racing he's done in the past and over winter. Maybe a little bit race rusty, maybe the nerves are getting to him off the start, but that's going to get better throughout the year.
The lead gap has evaporated all of a sudden. This was 1.7 seconds of clear air between cars 99 and 31 about 3/4 of a lap ago. It's now about a car length or so. So the 31 car of Daniel Morris very much taking the fight to Alistair Barkley. We didn't see if there was a moment anywhere for the race leader, or whether it's just a case of maybe the second place car looking after its tyres better, but either way, game on now for the race lead. Just 0.3 of a second officially separated them at the end of the second sector, and with just over 3 minutes to go, they should have time for 2 more laps. So Daniel Morris looking for his first victory of the year, Alistair Barkley looking to double up after Saturday's victory, and either one of them could take it at the moment. Now, looking at the body language of Alistair Barkley's car, can you see anything evidently wrong with the way it's handling?
Looking at the sector times, there's nothing drastic, and Morris has just done 2 green sectors and his fastest lap of the race, so he's taken a second out of him. So I don't know if it was just a mistake in that first 2 sectors, maybe 1 sector, but it kind of looks at the final sector now that Barkley's clearly got the pace again and starting to build that gap back out again, so maybe a little mistake there.
Yeah, you're right, the sector times weren't terrible, they were just sort of consistently not quite on pace like that previous lap. He's getting away again now. Of course, Daniel Morris, once he got within sort of 6 or 7 tenths or so, would have started to pick up a whiff of a slipstream, I guess, which does a lot of the job for you at some of the more high-speed parts of the circuit. Yeah, as you say, Alistair Barkley now starting to reassert his authority. The gap is now back out to almost what it was a couple of laps ago. It's just over 1.1 seconds now, as you can see on the lovely graphic down the left-hand side of the screen. Roy Alderslade is still 3rd, and Chris Salkeld is falling back now, despite having set the fastest lap a lap or so ago. He is, though, going quickly on this lap. Chris Salkeld in 4th place has just set the outright fastest first sector and the fastest speed registered at the speed trap down the Lakeside Straight. So the 2 cars that are sort of 4.5 seconds behind these 2 are getting themselves closer together now. So as the lead gap, the lead battle starts to fade slightly, turn our attention maybe to the fight for 3rd. The leading 2 come through, and yes, in the background they're nose to tail now for 3rd position. So Chris Salkeld all of a sudden has started to close back in. He was within a second at the start of the lap, and Salkeld sensing a chance to get back on the podium. There they go, up Clay Hill. The white, orange and green car is Roy Alderslade, who is still the Cup class leader, and his nearest Cup class rival is the number 42 car of Mike West, running down in 7th place outright. So he's not in danger of losing the class lead, but when you're in an outright podium position, that's sort of worth fighting for, isn't it, David?
Yes, Roy made a big move on lap 1 to go from 4th to 3rd overall, and yeah, as you can see from the cask structure, he's punching well and truly above his weight at the moment. one more lap to hold on. He's going to win the Chairman's Cup, touch wood. Can he get an overall podium at the same time as well?
Well, Chris Salkeld says no, he can't, because he goes up the inside of Oulton corner and takes the podium place away. Just as you said that, David. Can he hold it on the exit of the corner, though? Because Alderslade's had the better exit and pulls back alongside down the avenue through right-hander at Denton's. He's got the inside for the King, but not for Cascades. He's done it, though. He's gone back through. Nice stuff for Alderslade. Outbreaks himself slightly, though, and so Salkeld's back up the inside again. This place has changed hands about 3 or 4 times in 2 corners. Fantastic stuff. But Chris Salkeld, I think now he's in front, ought to have the pace to escape, but Alderslade, fair play to him there, David. He wasn't going to roll over and let him through, was he?
No, I thought he kind of let him through going into turn 1, maybe playing the long game, because he'll score good points for the Chairman's Cup and retain it, but then got stuck right back in again on the way out, and it was a mega move around the outside on the way into Cascade, just a little bit hot on the way. He did well to hold on to it and just slotted in behind.
So late on the brakes to make the move stick that he sort of almost didn't make the corner, but gathered it together and still 4th place and still leading the Chairman's Cup, as you correctly say. Now, the lead gap, just to keep us on our toes, is starting to creep down again as well, I reckon. And is that Rob Keogh? It is Rob Keogh, who, because of the battling going on between the 2 cars in front of him, is almost now in podium contention. The orange and black car there in 5th position at the moment, number 35. Rob had a bit of a sluggish start, didn't he? Dropped down the order slightly from his 4th place starting position. He's never really fully recovered, but he sees an opportunity to find a way past Alderslade here before the checkered flag. I don't think the lead is likely to change hands in the final quarter and a half, because Alistair Barkley is now gap continuing to ebb and flow slightly, but he's now back to a 2.5 seconds clear, and it's been a really nice drive this from Alistair Barkley. He won't have quite the same sort of margin in hand that he had at the end of Saturday's race, but it will still be a maximum points haul here for Alistair Barkley. The 2nd race victory of the season goes to the number 99 car, and Alistair Barkley sees the checkered flag first. A solid drive though from Dan Morris in 2nd place to get within a second by the flag. It will be Salkeld 3rd and Alderslade 4th, so Rob Keogh just ran out of laps really there. Another lap or so, he might just have had a chance to get into 4th, maybe even onto the podium, but it wasn't to be. Then it is in 6th position, Jimmy Thompson, not to be confused with former British Touring Car champion Jimmy Thompson, as he sometimes went by. Then it is Waddling next in line in 7th, and he is the 2nd of the Chairman's Cup drivers, Julian Waddling in 7th position. 8th overall is car number 6, Bill Forbes, and 9th is the number 8 car of Ian Duggan, but Ian will round out the Chairman's Cup podium. So Alderslade, Waddling and Duggan, your top 3 in the Chairman's Cup, but it was Alistair Barkley, Dan Morris and Chris Salkeld, your outright podium then. I said it was a maximum score for Barkley because Salkeld did nick that fastest lap away from him. David, if Chris could ever put a whole race together, he could win, couldn't he?
Yeah,
but just
definitely.
The start's not going to plan.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously one of the highest pressure environments on the circuit, in the whole race situation, and he's clearly just not nailed the starts. I mean, you don't get very many opportunities to practice them with the build-up, etc. So, yeah, maybe he needs to go to the back of the car park in between races 2 and 3. Have a few launches, get used to it, and then after that, clearly he's got the pace. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on in race 3.
That's a good point actually, because they can do days and days of winter testing, can't they? But they're not often in that situation where they can do a practice start, and let alone at the start of an actual race with a pack of cars around you. So it's a good point well made, that, David. Here is confirmation of your result then. Alistair Barkley with the victory by just under a second in the end from Dan Morris in 2nd, Chris Salkeld 3rd, and Roy Alderslade 4th, wins the Chairman's Cup. Rob Keogh is 5th, ahead of Jimmy Thompson and Julian Waddling, then Bill Forbes, Ian Duggan and Mike West to round out your top 10. John Fleming, and then the number 37 car, that is, of Gary Wager from 16th on the grid. He had a good run. From Goldsmith and Birch, our retirements from that race, just the 2 in the end. The 44 car Martin Wills we saw pull off at Shell, and we also lost number 50 of Robin Grimwood. Well, it was an entertaining race, lots of shuffling early on. Chris Salkeld in the number 11 car rather went backwards, unfortunately, from his front row starting position. He was down to about 5th or 6th on the opening lap. And that didn't help either. A grassy run coming out of Old Hall Corner meant that he fell even further towards the rear of the field. The midfield battling as entertaining as ever, though, in the opening exchanges, and they never really calmed down for the rest of the race. It was a strong start for Mark Wills. He was up there fighting for a podium position in the early stages, but he will be one of several drivers to hit trouble. There was contact in the early stages for John Wall. He had to make a pit stop to get the bonnet reattached. whilst Chris Salkeld began the fight back at the inside of Roy Alderslade at Old Hall Corner. He made the move stick a corner later down at Cascades, but only after Alderslade had very briefly got his toes back in front. It was a terrific dice, but Salkeld was able to take over the final podium position. Alderslade, though, held on to the Chairman's Cup victory. Well, there we have it. Brilliant racing from the Ginetta G40 Cup, as always, and we'll watch with interest to see how these drivers get on for the rest of the year.